Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the February meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional Council. I want to welcome all of the councillors, all of our staff, those joining us via live stream, and also joining us today is Pastor Ian Jack and his wife Ruth. I'll introduce Pastor Jack shortly. Councillors, just before we open, I would like to remind everyone in relation to COVID-19 and the mandatory wearing of masks. The latest advice from the Chief Health Officer is that masks are not required to be worn while seated at a desk if you can maintain a 1.5 metre distancing from others. However, if you're moving around in the building, you must wear a face mask. So if you observe the crosses on your desk, in case you're wondering what they've been there for over the last 2 years, you're safe if you're sitting on one of those. And that's the manner in which we'll deal with today's meeting. So if I can ask the chamber to be upstanding, I'll get Councillor Hungerford to do the acknowledgement of the traditional custodians.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of Council, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Sunshine Coast local government area. We recognise that these have always been places of cultural, spiritual, social and economic significance. The traditional custodians' unique values and ancient and enduring cultures deepen and enrich the life of our community. We commit to working in partnership with the traditional custodians and the broader First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to support self-determination through economic and community development. Truth-telling is a significant part of our journey. We are committed to better understanding the collective history of the Sunshine Coast and the experiences of the First Nations people. Legacy issues resulting from colonisation are still experienced by traditional custodians and First Nations people. We recognise our shared history and will continue to work in partnership to provide a foundation for building a shared future with the Kabi people and the Jindaburra people. We wish to pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the important role First Nations people continue to play within the Sunshine Coast community. Together we are all stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Please remain upstanding, and I'll invite Pastor Ian Jack from the Nambour Christian Church to read the opening prayer. Thank you, Pastor Ian.
Thank you, Mayor Chambers. Good morning, everyone. Let's pray. Great God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, in the presence of these Sunshine Coast community leaders, once again I express gratitude for your goodness to us with daily blessings of food, health, air to breathe, as well as plenty of rain and sunshine, also for our families and for your great offer of salvation for eternity through the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ. We humbly ask for wisdom at this 24th February Council meeting for Mayor Jamieson and Councillors Babarowski, Cox, Dixon, Hungerford, Johnston, Landsberg, Law, Natoli, O'Prey and Ceres. May the decisions be made for the good of the communities, families and individuals throughout our Sunshine Coast region. So we say a sincere thank you and ask these things in the honour and name of Jesus Christ, both Lord and Saviour. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Ian. Please be seated. Councillors, we have no apologies or leave of absence today. The minutes from the ordinary meeting of 27 January 2022 have been received and confirmed. Can I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Dixon, seconded Councillor Natoli. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. There is no mayoral minute. Item 6 is to do with informing of conflicts of interest, and councillors, I'd like to draw to your attention that on 12 October 2020, amendments to the Local Government Act 2009 and the Local Government Regulation 2012 came into force. The amendments include the new Chapter 5B, which sets out new legislative requirements for dealing with councillors' conflicts of interest in local government matters. These arrangements will apply to how we manage such matters at today's meeting. So should anyone have a prescribed conflict of interest or a declarable conflict of interest, please alert me to that prior to the item being addressed. And to that point, Councillor Natoli, I'll pass to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In line of the intent of Clause 33 of the Standing Orders, I wish to update councillors on the status of an interest that I previously notified to the Chief Executive Officer and Council. Councillors may recall that on the 14th of October 2021, I notified this chamber under Section 150 EQ3CI of the Local Government Act 2009 that I have a declarable conflict of interest in a matter that may relate to or originate from certain current council employees who were subject officers in an investigation of a public interest disclosure. My declarable conflict of interest arose due to the fact that I agreed to act as a support person for the complainant, and in my capacity as a support person, I participated in investigation interviews conducted with the complainant. I've been informed this week that the aforementioned investigation has now concluded. Further, I have been advised that the basis of my declarable conflict of interest as originally made no longer exists. Accordingly, I am informing the Chamber that I no longer have a declarable conflict of interest of the nature notified to the Council on the 14th of October 2021. In line with my previous advice to Council, due to the confidentiality obligations under Section 65(1) of the Public Interest Disclosure Act 2010, I'm not able to disclose any information relating to the details of the public interest disclosure. While I recognise this is not notification of a conflict of interest, may I respectfully request that this statement be incorporated into the minutes of this meeting as a record of the advice which I have provided the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. We'll move on to item 7, which is presentations and councillor reports. And we do have a presentation to make. And I'd ask Councillor Johnston if he'd come forward. Councillor. So I'd like to just recognise, Councillor, in my capacity as the President of the LGAQ, recognise that Councillor Johnston has achieved the 10-year service level. As you're aware, Councillor Johnston previously represented this region in the Landsborough Shire Council and the Caloundra City Council, commencing on the 27th of March 1982 through until the 23rd of March 1991. And subsequent to that has been a councillor on the Sunshine Coast Council since the 28th of March 2020. So I'm delighted to present Councillor Johnston with his 10 years of service, recognition from the LGAQ, and I think it's fair to say that all councillors would agree that after departing in 1991, it's great to have Councillor Johnston back here now in 2022. Thanks, Councillor Johnston, very much. And there is your...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Certificate of recognition.
I'd just like to say thank you to the Mayor and to the Department of Local Government for this recognition. I think there's about 6 other councillors here who are also eligible for this, and I hope that they receive these in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll move that. If I can have somebody second it. Councillor Maria, thank you. All those in favour of receipt? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll go to item 8.1, the quarterly progress report. Invite Luke Flanagan forward to open the presentation, which will include insights from our CEO and all GEs.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. This report presents the quarterly progress report for Quarter 2 for the 2021-22 financial year. The report covers the period 1 October to 31 December 2021 and seeks to inform Council and the community on the progress of the implementation of the operational activities, significant projects and service highlights from the Council's operational plan for the financial year. There's 2 appendixes to the report. One is the Chief Executive Officer's quarterly highlights report. The second is a detailed report with status updates on all of the operational plan activities. Once adopted, the report is published and made available to the community through our website and through the State Library archives as well. Now I'd like to invite the CEO and members of the executive team to provide an update on some of the key achievements.
Thank you. Madam CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Luke. And I remain incredibly proud of the 1,800 people who formed Council to advance our vision to be Australia's most sustainable region. And to that effect, in that last quarter, you might remember our continuing commitment to sustainability in all its forms was reinforced when Council unanimously recognised that we are in a state of climate emergency that requires urgent and sustained effort to achieve our net zero emissions by 2041. This direction provides further impetus to drive our wide range of responses to the impacts of climate change. Council's nomination for the region to become a UNESCO biosphere has now been favourably considered by the Queensland and Australian governments. And in October of 2021, it progressed to UNESCO for their consideration. The intent is that the biosphere embeds the values of our community in our long-term planning as our region continues to grow over the next 20 years. And UNESCO is likely to make a decision mid-2022 this year. Our Maroochydore City Centre continues to take shape and attract investment to the region, with several important milestones being announced during the quarter. The sale of our cable landing station to NextDC provided a significant opportunity for Council and the region on our pathway to becoming a digital trade hub, strengthened by the reputation and capabilities that NextDC brings us. The 1-year anniversary of the Maroochydore City Centre development agreement with Walker Corporation saw Walkers lodge their first commercial office development application with EDQ for 50 First Avenue, demonstrating their commitment to the future of our city centre, which Council has committed to being our Olympic city. The safety of our community and employees continues to be a real focus for me and for all of us in Council as we adjust and readjust our response to COVID-19. In the last quarter, our partnership with Queensland Health was firmly in evidence with the establishment of the region's mass vaccination centre at our Caloundra Indoor Stadium. This centre played an important part in enabling the Sunshine Coast to reach both the 80% and the 90% fully dosed vaccination rates for people aged over 15 years, well ahead of where Queensland as a whole reached these targets. In addition, I'm inordinately proud of how our organisation worked together to prepare our staff, our facilities and our community for the commencement of public health and social measures that took effect on the 17th of December that coincided with the reopening of the state. The impacts of the continuing pandemic and weather events beyond our control continue to manifest themselves in many ways, as is the case in the context of the current construction market. Our Council is not immune from these impacts, particularly when we're delivering a $250 million plus capital works program. What you'll note in this report is the emergence of pandemic-related and other impacts on the delivery of our capital works program, with those impacts including industry-wide material availability and cost escalation issues, particularly in the delivery of steel and timber. Challenges with the availability of project resources, contractors and trades due to the high demand in the market, as well as COVID-related impacts. And seasonal weather impacts, the La Nina weather pattern producing higher than average rainfalls. Combined, these factors contributed to our capital works program being 5 to 10% behind the original forecast as at the 31st of December, which will result in adjustment to the program to be delivered this financial year. This adjustment is part of the Budget Review 2 consideration that we'll be looking at later in this meeting. All of those things considered, I think we stand very pleased to yet again achieve an excellent result for the annual audit of the Council for the 2021 year. Council received its 13th consecutive unmodified audit opinion from the Queensland Audit Office following its review of our 2021 financial statements and internal control framework. This continues to reinforce the strong and well-managed financial position of the organisation, which is another important element of our continued sustainability. Finally, as the region entered the festive season and border restrictions commenced easing in December, the Sunshine Coast did what it does best. We welcomed many visitors to our region with 2.2 million visits to our beautiful beaches during the quarter, up 17% from the period before. So I'll now invite some of our group executives to come through and talk about their respective areas, starting with Mr. Hadrell.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Quarter 2 was yet another busy period of activity for progressing the priority activities in the environment livability space of Council, with key deliverables across a range of areas, including planning and design, planning for our future, supporting our community, and a range of on-ground delivery activities. In the planning and design space, I think it was great to recognise that the Sunshine Coast Recreation Parks Plan was adopted, providing a framework for delivery, which is going to guide, over a 10-year period, our prioritisation and investment, and also to provide real guidance on the functionality and effectiveness of our park spaces for our community. Going to be a great opportunity to ensure that there's functional and affordable spaces for our community to enjoy as they currently do. In November, from a design perspective, the Blackwell Street Woombye final concept design was released following community consultation. And in November, just a bit earlier, the Woombye final concept design was released, and the Ulo Rosebud Street final concept plan was also released. So there's a range of really good design activities there, ensuring forward planning and a flow of activities for construction activities within our community. Under the Regional Partnership Agreement, a great opportunity and recognition of the $1 billion plus of stormwater infrastructure that Council has responsibility for, and the pressures and threats that's going to be under a changing climate scenario. So a great opportunity to partner with our university, University of Sunshine Coast, to look at design options which will help to boost the effectiveness and resilience, and hopefully also push out the design life and effective design life of some of our stormwater infrastructure, with a focus on culvert design. So that's an exciting piece of work that I'm sure will follow of interest in the future. In supporting of our community, the Kids Teaching Kids Future Dream Conference was held late last year. It was an incredible experience at the Marichi Bushland Botanic Garden. It was an opportunity to bring together 300 students, 19 schools, and representatives from both Cubby Cubby and Uniborough First Nations peoples. The feedback received from that forum or that opportunity was amazing, and an incredible opportunity for the youth of the Sunshine Coast to connect with and to learn from the First Nations peoples here on the Sunshine Coast. And so I'm sure that's something we'll be looking to repeat in the future. As part of Council's Environment Levy funding program, more than $325,000 was made available to over 100 landowners to look at conservation activities and build conservation outcomes on private lands across the Sunshine Coast. These activities are really compatible with and support the activities that Council undertakes on our public estate, and include contributions to threatened species management for things like koala, glossy black cockatoos and the Mary River cod. Building on the many citizen science projects and activities that are already underway and contributing fantastic knowledge to the Sunshine Coast, the latest addition in this space was the establishment of a series of coast snap photo locations across the coast. So 4 stations have been put in place at Alex Headland, Bedina, Coolum and Moffat Beach. The stations provide a fixed location where any member of the community, whether a resident or a visitor to our region, can place their phone, take a photo and upload it to a centralised website via an app. This is a global initiative that we're now a part of. It provides insights into coastal dynamics, erosion, probably monitoring some of the events that we've had in the last couple of weeks and early in the new year with Cyclone Seth on our doorstep. And in the future, future, under changing climate, we'll get to see a time series of photos over time of our changing coastline. Some 222 photos have been collected since those 4 stations were installed in December. So I think over the years ahead, we're going to get a great deal of photo evidence to support our monitoring and assessment of our coastal landscapes. Moving to some on-ground delivery, and as part of a program around continual investigation and adoption of smart technologies, this time in the weed management space. So late last year, there was a partnership opportunity with the state government and a local drone provider to treat 10 hectares of groundsel in the Coolum area. This is the first time that that sort of scale of weed treatment had been undertaken using aerial technology, using drones. Early results are that it was quite successful by way of its treatment effectiveness. And the good news is about 30% of the cost of traditional treatment methods. So we're getting good outcomes. Look, there are some pros and cons, and there's some limitations of use, but I think there is every opportunity for us to consider scaling up and trialling where we use drone technology to support weed management activities, particularly in locations where they are difficult to access, or there is innate work health and safety issues and trips, falls, hazards and other bits and pieces. So that's something for us to watch. And finally, Mr Mayor, look, pleased to advise that late last year the baseline monitoring commenced for the Blue Carbon pilot project. This is an exciting first step. The federal government has recently finalised their blue carbon methodology for calculating blue carbon, and this is our first step, or the next important step for us to estimate and calculate more accurately what is the carbon sequestration capacity within the Blue Heart area amongst our wetlands in that location. So again, look forward to bringing you more detail on that as we move forward. Mr Mayor, I'll now hand over to Mr Laverde.
Thank you, Bill, and welcome, Greg.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the arrival of NextDC on the Sunshine Coast in December was a clear highlight from a resilient economy perspective. Data centres have become an essential part of the business and social landscape, and the acquisition of the cable landing station from Council allows NextDC to move quickly to provide unprecedented levels of service and expertise to customers and contribute to investment attraction and job creation on the Sunshine Coast. Mr Mayor, I think it's worth reflecting just for a moment on the name of this project, which is the Sunshine Coast International Broadband Network Project. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but the word network in particular was a deliberate inclusion when we named that project a number of years ago. We have the submarine cable carrying live traffic. We have a significant increase in fibre connectivity around the Sunshine Coast, including to and from the cable landing station. We have additional and much cheaper backhaul to Brisbane, and we have a world-class data centre operator calling the Sunshine Coast home. That network is now complete. During the quarter, Council provided services and support to 2,836 businesses through a range of workshops, events and services. There were a range of these activities that had different focuses. In the area of supporting the local economy, we undertook the Buy Local Sunshine Coast initiative, which saw 2 campaigns generate more than $500,000 worth of local spend. In the labour market, we undertook 2 jobs fairs, one at Caloundra and one at Mooloolaba. There were more than 50 local businesses who listed more than 900 jobs to 845 prospective job seekers. We've worked closely with Visit Sunshine Coast in the development of the Gap Year Sunshine Coast initiative, which is about attracting and retaining workers on the Sunshine Coast. We have provided a virtual trade mission with Tokyo. The Trade and Invest Commissioner in Tokyo was online, along with 45 representatives from government and businesses, including some of the largest exporters on the Sunshine Coast. Council continued to take a leadership role in the economic space with the hosting of the Thriving Through Change Business Resilience Expo in October. That was the third in a series of leadership events that Council undertook, the first being around collaboration, the second being on the importance of human capital to the future of our economy. Sunshine Coast Stadium played host to the usual large-scale events, including a sellout monster trucks, We also saw the OzTag Super Series held. But the Sunshine Coast Stadium also played host to a range of more community-focused events, including a drive-in movie. We saw the Sunshine Coast Schools Sevens Rugby Championship played, and we saw the Steps group have their annual Christmas party there. We also saw the New Zealand All Blacks hold 2 open training sessions at the stadium, which were very well received by fans. Not to be outdone, the Regional Multisport announced that they would play host to the Brisbane Lion women's team for the 2022 season. Turning to a strong community, Mr Mayor, Council continued to send a strong message and support to victims of domestic and family violence, sending a message of zero tolerance to domestic and family violence in our community. The initiatives including participation in the 16 days of activism. In conjunction with the Make It Stop Committee, we planted 300 native trees and shrubs on the Mooloolaba foreshore. The Sunshine Coast played host to the Queensland Domestic and Family Violence Prevention Council for 2 days of meetings and workshops with local support services. Council has now donated 100 used mobile phones to DV Safe Phone, which is a local charity who support victims of domestic and family violence. Our library network continued to provide a wide range of services to our community. Online services continued to be popular, and they were supplemented by 15 outreach events where staff members went out into the community. We prepared take-home packs for Life Without Barriers, which saw those packs distributed to every foster child on the Sunshine Coast. Leading into Christmas, we also saw 1,025 summer school holiday packs that were distributed to registered library users. We've seen the return of the adult literacy programs, and Mr Mayor, I think it's worthy of note that during the quarter, 2,591 hours of volunteer support was provided to our library services. Members of the Sunshine Coast First Nations Accord were invited to participate in the inaugural First Nations Supplier Day, which is hosted by the Beech Tree Distilling Company at Caloundra. The attempt was well supported, with more than 200 attendees getting to see 40 First Nation businesses showcase their wares. The quarter also saw 23 graduates from the award-winning Migrant Ready for Work program and 45 participants in the Migrant Learn to Swim and Beach Safety Initiative. That's a joint initiative between Council and the Queensland Surf Lifesaving Association. We also saw 200 participants at Mooloolaba Beach in December to celebrate the International Day of People with a Disability. That event was a joint initiative between Council, Mooloolaba Surf Lifesaving Club and local disability support services. The idea of the day was to decrease barriers and ensure that people with a disability get the opportunity to enjoy our great beach culture. The activities included rugby, volleyball, tai chi and seated Zumba. And finally, Mr Mayor, during the quarter there was nearly $1.2 million worth of grants that were provided to 310 community organisations. One of the highlights of that is that these grants are available through a whole range of different grant programs, including our major and minor grant programs, our arts development program, environment, economic, emergency, heritage, individual grants, as well as the council discretionary funds. So that's it from a community perspective, Mayor. I'll hand over to Tom Jamieson. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, executive. I'd just like to give a quick short update on Council's transport network as part of our strong community portfolio. As always, I'd like to thank the Deputy Mayor for his strong advocacy and support in this key portfolio, which, as we know, it ranks highest of Council's expenditure categories in the capital programme, not excluding the region-making projects. Some key notable highlights for Q2. On October the 20th, Council endorsed the mass transit options analysis to be progressed to the Queensland Government, who will now lead the development of the detailed business case in partnership with Council. We have commenced development of Council's next active transport plan to take an all ages, all abilities approach towards the next 10 years. These updates are aligned with Council's integrated transport plan and focus on reducing dependency on car travel by increasing active transport modes. This plan will include a significant community engagement and consultation process as we go through development of the plan. Additionally, in the quarter, we spent over $3 million on Council's gravel road network and $4.3 million on our sealed road network. We've constructed over 9 kilometres of sealed roads across the region, delivered through CAM. The pedestrian and cycle sub-programme constructed 19 new pathways throughout the coast, throughout the Sunshine Coast during the period. And Transport Infrastructure Management responded to a total of over 972 customer requests on transport-related matters. And CAM delivered over 6,500 work orders. Some key highlights, particularly from the civil asset management area, we completed the stage 1 of resurfacing the car park at the wharf, Maleny, completed for just over $400,000. And stage 2 began on the 31st of January, and we aim to have that finished ahead of the Maleny Try on 11th of March. Council's Road Hub, an online database of road data, was expanded to include electronic push-outs, making access to road information easier for all Sunshine Coast residents. And finally, 2 important transport stakeholder meetings were held during the quarter. The Sunshine Coast Active Transport Advisory Committee met on the 12th of December to workshop priorities for the newly formed committee and providing council officers with essential issues to be incorporated into the Active Transport Plan. And the quarterly Transport Community Reference Group was held on the 3rd of November, again proving to be a successful avenue for community information and advice, supporting Council's future strategic transport decision making. The newly refreshed membership provided some fresh ideas that are very, very much appreciated. And that concludes the update on a strong community portfolio. And I'll move on to giving an update on service excellence. Mr. Mayor, and this is on behalf of Warren Bunker and myself. All good?
Keep going, you're right.
As part of Service Excellence, we would like to acknowledge and recognise Councillor Johnston, Councillor Dixon, again for your strong direction and enthusiasm for this portfolio. So despite the impacts and effects of COVID, our field crews in particular have delivered and continued operations with an emphasis on service excellence to our community. From October-December, we have some highlights for Q2 from our particular operational areas. Our fleet team managed over 510 plant and equipment plan services and 824 ad hoc repair requests. Parks and Gardens continue to deliver high standards of service across the region, and despite extremely wet months as a result of La Nina, with November and December receiving over 750 millimetres of rain, the teams achieved over 90 million square metres of cut grass, and our thanks in particular go to our contractor base for their efforts in this key activity of Council. We also maintained over 4.35 million square metres of garden beds. Almost 900 work orders were completed in the quarter, with over 70% delivered on time or early. Parks remain on track for delivery of their $13 million capital programme, and in the period, over 600 new trees were planted through the Street Tree Master Programme. All of these were carried out with safety as a priority, and 95 safety audits and over 1,000 compliance audits were undertaken. From a civil asset management perspective, the contracts delivery delivered a contracts value over $4 million in the period. We have completed 3 artificial intelligence trials to automate the discovery of defects on council roads and roadside assets, as well as also trialling alternatives to gravel on our unsealed roads that we expect to withstand, therefore be able to withstand more rainfall and produce less dust. The Civil Operations team assisted in Council's Regional Erosion and Sediment Education and Trust Programme. And again, all of this incredible work was done with safety as the first priority. And in the year, Civil Construction team completed over $27 million worth of work in the year, accident-free, which is a huge achievement for the team and everyone involved with that construction area. Finally, CAM have had 2 teams nominated for excellence in sustainability. The construction team was named as a finalist in the CEO's Excellence Awards under the sustainability category for exceptional environmental management on the McGilchrist Road upgrade, and the contracts delivery team was a nominee for the IPWA 2021 Excellence Awards in the environment and sustainability category for Council's road reseal programme. So thank you, Mayor. That's an update on service excellence, and I hand over to Heidi.
Heidi's coming in via Teams.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome, Heidi.
Good morning, everybody. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just an update on our outstanding organisation. So, as you know, our organisation aspires to be and continues to be outstanding, both externally for the community we serve and internally for our people. So this quarter saw a number of achievements, including key activities to create and deliver great workplaces that are also community spaces that connect our community. In terms of construction of our City Hall, the building has topped out at level 10 with critical building services, plant and equipment delivered, and the roof structure has commenced. The glazed facade is well progressed with all glass deliveries received from overseas, and the external perforated facade installation is now underway. The building is now weather tight, thank goodness, from levels 1 to 4, and the car park is also complete. In December 2021, Council agreed the uses of levels 8 and 9 with a decision to retain the top floor for civic and community purposes, and this will provide opportunities for our community to connect through community events such as citizenship ceremonies, engagement activities and innovation hubs, and will really just be a site for us to connect and interact and collaborate. Our City Hall building is not only the centre of democratic decision-making for the Sunshine Coast, but it exemplifies our commitment to climate responsiveness and sustainability. The building has been designed and built to be energy and water efficient and to achieve 5-star, Green Star and NABERS ratings, thus reflecting our vision to be Australia's most sustainable region. Our 38 other workplaces have been recently audited to ascertain their fitness for purpose, and a works program has been developed to bring all of our facilities to standard in a planned and phased way reflective of funding, safety and sustainability principles. Sustainability principles continue to influence all that we do at Council, and in particular, sustainability is a crucial lens through which we evaluate our suppliers. Council specifications continue to seek sustainable options where appropriate for the goods and services we procure. So recent examples of this include the inclusion of solar panels and 4 5,000 litre roof water reuse tanks in the construction of Sunshine Holiday Parks. The contractor engaged will be working with Council to ensure that the solar panels are installed in the most sustainable system, that they ensure longevity and deliver favourable return outputs. A network irrigation system that tracks rainfall and weather forecasts to suspend irrigation and identify problems and leaks early has also been procured with the intention that it will save water, energy and costs. And then of the energy that we procure, 50% of Council's electricity is supplied by Diamond Energy. Now, Diamond Energy also sells the generated energy from our solar farm. Diamond Energy has once again been awarded a 5-star rating by Greenpeace in their recently updated Green Electricity Guide. Their guide states that Diamond Energy is rates 100% in terms of its provision of clean and renewable energy. It rated 100% for ending coal use by 2030, and it rated 100% for supporting new renewable energy. So it only generates renewable electricity, it has a large investment in renewable energy, it has active support for household solar, and it's not involved in fossil fuel extraction. Operationally, we recently devised a system for automatically shutting off our air conditioning in our workplaces when the building's not being utilised. The shut-off can occur remotely and looks to save thousands of dollars in spend, but more importantly, enormous energy savings. In terms of culture and safety for our workplace, our teams have obviously continued to adapt and respond to COVID, working remotely from December last year and throughout the Christmas period, and implementing a phased return to work in accordance with the directions of the Chief Health Officer. We've put in place CO2 sensors. They've been installed in our larger work sites to monitor air quality in alignment with the World Health Organisation Best Practice Roadmap in relation to COVID. The sensors improve and automate indoor air quality, and we've got a project underway to install all of these sensors via the Wi-Fi network in all workplace locations by the end of April. In terms of culture, 43% of our employees responded to a cultural safety, diversity and inclusion survey in December, and the results will inform the development of our people and culture plan this year and our outstanding organisation strategy later this year. We've revised our parental leave arrangements and modernised them with a plan and some principles and pathway for a more innovative parental leave policy, and over 1,140 employees participated in internal and external courses and workshops, including bystander intervention training, which instills the imperative to take action when you observe behaviour that puts others at risk. In pursuing our commitment to the Reconciliation Action Plan, secured the engagement of First Nation providers to co-design and deliver face-to-face training and local on-country experiences. This continues our development of culturally capable workplaces that promote respect and value the skills, experience and perspectives of First Nation employees and community. So the pilot program commences in March, and that will see 450 employees participating in this experience by June 30th, and will generate a spend of nearly $90,000 with First Nation businesses. In terms of digital capability and transformation, we've recently established a gold partnership with LGAQ. We were the first council to do so, and that will give council access to new reporting capabilities and provide access to skilled resources who can give us more targeted reporting and operational insights, also benchmarking and learning from across a broad range of councils, and it will enable data and info to be shared across councils so that we can really realise those partnerships with our local neighbours and more broadly across the state. We've continued to progress our cyber security approach in alignment with industry best practice. We've introduced security into our document services, which means there's a restriction on any malicious code being included or run within our documents. We've also continued to mature our 24/7 cyber monitoring. We've got cyber attack mitigation activities in place and recovery services, and our management of security events and our centralised security information is being matured. In particular, that's in response to the detection and analysis of cyber threats, but we're also continuing to strengthen our firewalls and our email, and also making sure that we continue our business-wide cyber awareness training programs. So all of the above initiatives showcase the ways in which we continue to be high-performing, innovative and sustainable in all that we approach, both internally and externally. We're a council defined by great people, strong governance and regional leadership, vision and the determination to be a truly outstanding organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. That concludes our presentations. Councillors, can I have someone move the report, please? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Councillor Hungerford. Would you like to open, Councillor Johnston, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and Madam CEO and members of the ELT. I think it's really an amazing list of achievements that have been achieved by you, Madam CEO and your team, and also the workers of the Sunshine Coast Council. And I'd like to congratulate everybody involved. I know within my own division there have been significant activity, and as always, and it continues, and I look forward to continuation of this successful achievement. We've certainly gone through a difficult period in relation to COVID-19 and also in relation to the supply of materials and some equipment, and that's something that basically our team has taken in their stride. Something that I did actually pick up while there was Councillor Law, Councillor Hungerford, Councillor Natali and Landsberg and myself earlier this week went to a training course with Queensland Treasury Corporation and the University of Queensland, and we were talking about budgets and the formation of budgets, debt and all those sort of things. And I was quite impressed with the fact that the lady who was, Lisa, who was taking part of the training course, was commenting very favourably in relation to our format for accounting and the way it was presented, the information that it contained. It certainly was, in my opinion, significantly better than the other ones that were demonstrated there on the day. So keep up good work, and thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's a lot of achievements in this report. I've just picked out a handful to highlight that stick out for me as very significant for our community. 70% of Council's total available purchasing spend for the quarter went to local businesses. That results in $70.3 million being injected into our economy. Very significant at this point in time with the difficulties a lot of businesses have, especially with COVID and supply materials and things like that. That is an increase of over 11 million for the same period last year. Significant support for our community and our businesses. Council has also continued to support our local businesses by paying all creditors within 7 days. That helps with the cash flow. That's very important. Almost 1.2 million in community grants awarded across 310 applicants. Combined with the last quarter, that equates to 3.7 million in community grants. That is to support our community organisations to deliver a wide range of services and outcomes to our community. Very significant. And despite the impacts of the weather pattern, we've had a very above average year for rain this year. That impacted on delivering works out on the ground. But importantly, despite that increased cloud and rain to the region, the Sunshine Coast Solar Farm continued to offset 100% of Council's electricity consumption. Shows how successful that solar plant is. Extremely successful. 5.4 million invested in rehabilitating and resurfacing 7.2 kilometres of our local roads. And this one's a pet one for me. Council has received an unprecedented 13th consecutive unmodified audit opinion from the Queensland Audit Office. That is a clean bill of health as far as our financial reporting and financial management goes. Our community can be very proud of that. And on the council side of things, this council and council staff have received 7 awards during this period. Among those, the Caloundra Main Street Urban Revitalisation Project, the Mooloolaba Foreshore Revitalisation Project, renewal of the Amarina Culvert at Mooloolaba, the Marichi Groin Project, the Sunshine Coast Design Book, the Yellow Book. It's not just that, it's the staff behind that. That is a credit to each and every one of those in achieving that, because without fantastic staff doing a great job, those things are not achieved. But on the individual side of things, Ross Ullman, the Project Director for the Sunshine Coast Expansion, he received the prestigious Excellence Award for Engineer of the Year. Shows how successful that project's been, but I think Ross has been a driving force behind that success, and we should be very proud of that. And our own Warren Bunker, the Group Executive for Livability and Natural Assets Group, was awarded a Life Fellow of the Planning Institute of Australia. That's very significant as well. Congratulations, Warren. But there's a lot more in here, and I could go on for quite a while. But it shows consistently these quarterly reports are always an inspiration. It shows our consistency in delivering for this community. And this community can be confident that this council is punching well above its weight, which, despite the difficulties of COVID and the supply chain issues, we are still achieving this outcome. which is fantastic. And I wholeheartedly ask councillors to support the resolution here in the recognition of these outstanding achievements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Difficult speaking after Councillor Hungerford, because I was just going to touch on a couple of those awards which received recognition during the second quarter, the end of last year. But reading through the report, it's a great report card for our community, and they should be very, very proud of what this council's been achieving on their behalf. As Councillor Hungerford touched on, I was going to mention, because my previous role in the last term was place development and design, and now portfolio for environment and livability, those awards that Councillor Hungerford touched on fell into the remit of those portfolios. But two of those were actually national awards, and as Councillor Hungerford mentioned, one being for the main street of Calandra, the urban revitalisation, as well as the Malulaba foreshore revitalisation. So national awards, these are assessed against projects right across the country, and we've come away with 2 wins. I think that is simply outstanding. The other ones which Councillor Hungerford touched on were state awards, and I won't elaborate, but they were assessed against a whole range of projects across the state, and he's mentioned those couple of individual awards for our staff, including Mr Bunker. So I think that's just outstanding. I'm very, very proud of this organisation. You know, we often get criticised. I think sometimes rightly or wrongly, it's up to the community to judge us, but if they were to read this particular document, I think they would sort of understand how this organisation is performing on their behalf, and I just will be endorsing this recommendation wholeheartedly today and encourage everyone to do likewise.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. The community who are watching this today might think that Council's patting itself on the back too much, but the truth is we have hard debates and we have difficult issues across the region. So today's a good opportunity through a quarterly report and the lead up to an annual report to just take stock of where we are and what we do well. In my opinion, we've got a very well-balanced political council in terms of individual members, but more so where the true powerhouse of the organisation is, it's the CEO and the group executive and staff underneath. In my 15 plus years on local council, I'd have to say that the operations of council are in the best place they've ever been. And that's an observation because I know when I reach out to staff for assistance, they're there to help. They may not always have the answers, but they're there to help. Many of the directors and whatnot within the organisation and the management are actually able to call after hours or on the weekend for assistance. That's amazing. That just means that not only are they here to do a good job, but they love what they do. Particular credit to Warren Bunker and Tom Jamieson, who I have a lot to do with, and I do text and call after hours, so I appreciate their assistance in my community. With this report, there's one thing I wanted to mention today. The quarterly report also talks about operational plan, outcomes and initiatives. One thing that I need to actually comment on today is in regards to Palmview. So for those of you who remember, most ordinary meetings I speak about something to do with Palmview. Today I just want to touch on my frustration. So if you read this report, it talks about council being involved in infrastructure negotiations being 50% complete. What people don't realise in Palmview right now is that one of our biggest issues, and it's more evident now with climate change than ever, we've had fires, we've had floods, and Palmview has one road in and out of that development estate. And I know because I live there and I hear it every single day. There's 2,800 members of the local community Facebook page, and the number one issue for them out there right now, last week it was NBN because it was out for a week, but it's road access. And rightly so. The developer in the area is required to open western access to the Bruce Highway by June 30 this year, and that work hasn't even started. Now, I'm beyond frustrated with this, Mr Mayor, because as a person who has seen a fire in the National Park cut off access to my estate, where I live in my community, and also see recent floods come close to toppling over the only road in and out of the estate, it really highlights the issue of access. And not only frustrations around timeframes, but people's lives. We're talking about thousands of residents who live in my estate where I am right now who are going to potentially be cut off with natural disasters. And this is one of the fastest, if not fastest, developing estate across Australia. I was frustrated last October to see a slamming story in a local newspaper about council's inefficiencies. I can tell you right now, this council has put its neck out to deliver so many hundreds of new lots to get people in homes in this estate, and right now we are $80 million behind in developer contributions for infrastructure in that estate. Because we wanted to get people into homes. We wanted to get those lots out there for first home buyers and those doing it tough. But this has been to the detriment of our community and the very community that live there right now. I wrote to the Minister for Transport and Main Roads on the 15th of December. I'm yet to receive a response yet, but I've called on the Minister, Mark Bailey, to step in and hold the developers to account for that delivery of the road infrastructure to the Bruce Highway, and it's the #1 project. Further to that, the developer has done so much work that the development's actually been brought forward significantly. And I read in an article recently, this is from the developer, they want it to be out by 2031. They're now going to be out by 2025. Now, that's their estimation, that's not council's, but that's a scary thought when you've got $80 million worth of work to do. Not only have they got the western access to the Bruce Highway, but they've also got a southern road to Caloundra that they must start very, very soon. At last check with council staff, they had around about 170 dwellings that they can deliver before that road needs to be opened up. We mean business, and I can tell you, I'm not just the only one passionate in this space. Our staff are working very, very hard. I've had an update in the last fortnight from Mr. Bunker, and we're going to push very, very hard on getting these outcomes. The council may be tested for moving slow in its space moving forward around developer and lot yield, but we're going to be pushing very, very hard for this infrastructure to happen, and I make no apologies for that.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor O'Prey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Another remarkable report on the quarter. It's extraordinary, and it's just reassuring to the business communities right across the country that the Sunshine Coast is a safe and sensible place to invest. And my commentary today will be wrapped around our portfolio, with Terry and myself being economic development, and Greg's report particularly. I just want to say that the reassurance that we get here on the Sunshine Coast about our ability to deliver, it's all about having the delivery, the actual feet on the ground, and these projects coming out of the ground. And a great insight into that was his discussion in and around the subsea cable. And now the fact that we've got world-class offerings there and data centres actually starting to put their feet on the ground. And that's critical to the progress of our future for the Sunshine Coast, which is really to be commended. The Buy Local Sunshine Coast initiative was extraordinary. I was lucky enough to go out to the jobs workshops and the jobs fairs, and I witnessed firsthand 900 jobs and offering. It was extraordinary because the ones that I've been to in the past, it was flipped on its head completely. In the past, it had always been about people fighting for a job, tackling for a job, resumes going everywhere. Where on this case, it was more about the employers seeking the employee rather. So they were the ones offering and making bigger offers. And I don't know how this is going to pan out in the future, but quite frankly, it was really good to see that the dynamic was taken up. And I think there was 900 on offer, and I think just about 90% of those were taken up. So extraordinary that the Sunshine Coast Council can do those initiatives with the state and federal government. The events that we had, probably not so much the event space I'd like to draw to your attention, but more so the teams coming to town. Teams coming to town is what we've really been formidable at, if you want to say. We look at the teams that have come to the Sunshine Coast and lead up to the Commonwealth Games in 2018, the teams that we have come here, but none greater, I don't think, than ever the All Blacks coming to the Sunshine Coast to train. It was Elton John-like down there when the crowds were down there. It was extraordinary. The kids were just beside themselves. The mums and dads particularly were beside themselves watching these All Blacks go around. And it's a real credit to the Sunshine Coast Stadium, to Simon Malony's team, to create and actually get those teams, because that's probably one of the hardest teams in the world to get to come to your location. On top of that, we've secured the Brisbane Lions women's team as their hometown. You know, they're playing out of Fisherman's Road, and they've done a great job this season, and good luck to them for the rest of the summer. The last thing I really wanted to talk to you about was the tourism market, and particularly the successes that we've had in this quarter. 2.2 million visitors, which is a lot of people, and most of those people are on the drive market. They're coming out of Brizzy. They're coming down the failing Bruce Highway. And people vote with their feet. They decide to go to the Sunshine Coast because it's an amazing place, and they're willing to take the sacrifice and cop the 3-4 hour trip home on the Sunday afternoon. Most of our visitors are leaving on the Friday afternoon after work with the highways chockers coming into the Sunshine Coast. It's a 2-hour trip minimum on a Friday afternoon, and then they're leaving on the Sunday. It doesn't matter what time anymore. They used to leave Sunday afternoon and get caught in traffic. Now you're leaving at 10 o'clock in the morning getting caught in traffic. Right, this is the 2.2 million visitors that are coming to our region. Flights aren't working, so they're all coming via the highway, and they're still coming. So the successes that are there, and like I said, they're voting with their feet. They're coming here because it's a great place and the offerings are amazing. Good value for money, great safe place to be for the family. But they're still copping it on the chin for that horrible failing of that Bruce Highway. And I don't know what we can do more to secure more funding for that, Mr Mayor, but I think even going forward into the future, with the plans that they've got, it's going to keep failing for years and years to come. So bring on the morale network, as I say. Mr Mayor, again, a remarkable report. I'd like to thank all the ELT for all they do, and of course the CEO. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Madam CEO, for you and your staff. Like the other councillors, there's just some remarkable work that's been done under trying conditions in a lot of cases, and not just weather conditions, but also construction costs and delay being able to get materials. It's just been really challenging to be able to get a whole range of very important work that council does for our community undertaken. My division has obviously been incredibly busy, and no doubt proud of the work that's been done down there. The foreshore in particular, the Mayor opened the new northern part of the beach foreshore on the 9th of November last year, which allowed the public to have access to the boardwalk and the small bit of park there, as well as the steps that are now well used by fitness fanatics and people who want to access the boardwalk currently. But the comments that the community have given back have been so favourable. It's an outstanding place, and when Bridget Chili was there the day before with the community groups that we gave them a sneak preview, showed us Point Cartwright, which we're currently working through the master plan, and talked about Barunga, which is the man that lies there. I didn't realise, but when you actually look at Point Cartwright, the head of it looks like one of their elders lying there on his back looking up. And so it was just incredible to have that perspective, but it's a wonderful vantage point to be able to see that. Some of the other things that has happened at the Wharf car park when I got elected was incredibly tight. The work that Kim Martins did with both Sea Life and the Wharf owners to bring them together to contribute towards the upgrade of that car park. It was complex and difficult, but we got there. We've accelerated the plans to try and get that work done. We've tried to mitigate the holiday periods. We're now trying to accelerate to complete before the triathlon. And the work that Lisa and her team have done in that area, it's just been remarkable. You'll see in BR2 there'll be a contribution towards some additional trees. I know the CEO and I were very mindful that we were going to lose a few trees, and we've managed to be able to not have that, but I've had to make some contributions towards that as well. But it's going to look amazing, and the Wharf is one of the premier destinations now with the food offering there. It's really important that car park and the plants and the trees look great for the visitors. The other exciting thing is obviously for the first time we're going to look at a beach nourishment, and there was a resident wondering what the hell nourishment meant, but it's replacing sand and bringing sand from an external source. It's never been done anywhere in the Sunshine Coast. Bored 300 metres offshore, it is rainbowed into the water, and hopefully with tides, currents and weather conditions it will then find its way onto the beach. So again, congratulations for council. Just, you know, that innovation, and if that works, then obviously that gives us the opportunity to have that buffer with these storm seasons. We need to have a significant buffer to make sure we don't impact the infrastructure that we have. Next DC, obviously they've made that decision to come to Maroochydore. Just when I went with Winston and the other councillors, the car park was opposite where Next DC's office was in Brisbane, so I'm not sure if that was a sign. We've obviously won a number of awards in Division 4 as well, which is fantastic. And one of those is obviously the Mauritia Groin project, which won the Excellent Award for the best project between $1 and $2 million, receiving a high commendation for coastal engineering. And also the renewal of the Amarina culvert, really innovative technology, minimum disruption to a very busy road, a lot of water that comes off the motorway. So great work again for the guys. And just further down, and Councillor Dixon will be happy to know that the underpass at Don Pitt and his crew, we had a very difficult situation with narrow footpaths and too many students access, hundreds of students access that. The work that they've done in improving the drainage because it used to flood, and get through. So that's just another great outcome. Even though that's not part of this, that's just a reflection of the great work that they've done. And just want to note the food waste loop in Yandina. Thank you to the contribution of the many councillors that did contribute to that, because that, even though it wasn't in my division, it was, I know a number of councillors, Councillor Dixon, Johnston, you put money into that, and Mayor put money into that. So, and Councillor, of course, a lot of councillors put money into that. That was great. And there was mention of Bushland Botanic Gardens by Bill, but there's no reference here, but we did celebrate 20 years of that, and it's just, if you have a look at that gardens from what it was when I first got elected, just bushland to what it is today, it's just a fantastic asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, to restate what has been made obvious by many councillors speaking today, the quarterly reports are an amazing opportunity for us to do two things. One is to reflect on what's been achieved in that quarter, and the most important one to me is the second one, which is to help our community to understand what it is that we deliver and do on their behalf. If I may, there are three strategic standouts that I'd like to highlight. One, I'd like to reinforce the comments already made on the next DC announcement. I see that as a broader achievement. Look, many of us, I think, are aware that to reposition our region from a domestic tourism destination, which is absolutely excellent, to something that is more 21st century commercial destination, able to be a really attractive investment centre, is the digital infrastructure that we've now got in place. And the GE described that basic infrastructure is now in place with that announcement. I look forward to looking back in 10, 15, 20 years' time on how pivotal this moment has been. The second strategic standout for me is the Council's willingness to support the operations and take over the operations and the collection of the Landsborough Museum. That was such an important part of the Heritage Plan's intent, that we look at these very important pieces of heritage infrastructure and say, are they working well? It was struggling. The volunteer operational team called out to Council, some assessments were done, and Council endorsed a report last quarter to take over operations of the Landsborough Museum. And I really genuinely want to thank this Council for doing that. I think we'll all appreciate, as we go forward with so much change, our backstory and how we tell that is becoming more and more important. And the third one is, to me, probably the heaviest weight one. And as we've heard today, the quality of our life is dependent upon our transport networks. And last quarter, we endorsed the options analysis report and put that forward to the state, who have this responsibility to deliver the network, to commence a process of a detailed business case. I cannot overemphasise the hard work that was put in by the team, the council team, working in collaboration with the community and the state in making sure that this region gets the infrastructure, the transport infrastructure that it needs to protect the lifestyle offer that we have now, but more importantly, well into the future. That's an incredibly important marker on that journey. So again, I congratulate the Council on achieving that last quarter. It was a difficult political decision, but in the end we absolutely made the right one. Congratulations on all of the other things. There are 3 standouts in a long list, as has already been made obvious, and I really look forward to supporting the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. Look, I think everything has been said about what is clearly a great quarterly report, and I concur with all those comments that have been made. I do have a couple of questions, however, and they are perhaps to Emma or Greg in the first instance. Last week, I had the pleasure of launching a Sunshine Coast Council campaign, and that campaign is that it's cool to be kind. And it's all about our COVID recovery and trying to recognise the fact that in some circumstances, due to staff shortages as a consequence of the pandemic, due to issues around logistics and stock in various stores, there's a lot of staff, employees, frontline people, whether they be in the retail sector or the services sector or the health sector, perhaps the aged care sector, and certainly in the local government sector, who may have had to bear the brunt of some community members who perhaps didn't agree with some of the things that we were doing. But so my question is, and the campaign, it's cool to be kind, is just to just take a breath and settle down and recognise that it's not more often than not the fault of the individual you're dealing with. They're just the representative that is seeking to assist you. And from my experience during the pandemic, people across a broad range of industries have done an outstanding job in satisfying the needs of their clients. But my question is, how have our staff and their interactions with the public across a range of sites being impacted since the public health and social measures of November 17 came into force? Would you like to answer that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, the Call to Be Kind campaign originated from us in Council through our great creative teams as a result of not only conversations that they were having with businesses, but interactions that we were having with the community. And we acknowledge that COVID has had pretty significant impacts on lots of people, and there is a great discussion about the long-term mental health impacts of the environment that we're existing in today. But also it's a very complicated environment for council staff. Just the discussion of where we wear masks, who has to wear them, who doesn't have to wear them, the conversations that are happening through December and the start of the year of which venues needed people to have vaccinations and which didn't. This was a really complicated set of instructions, and we're appreciative of the collaboration that we had with the Chief Health Officer and the local government department out of state government, who tried very hard to provide us with advice through the LGAQ. But that still left it up to our frontline staff to try and work with our community and try and offer the best services that we can. And I know my teams always try and offer the very best service they can, and sometimes some of those things can be difficult. Not everybody likes to be asked to put their dog back on a leash, or pick up their dog's droppings, or be asked to sign into a library. But all of those things come with our people trying the very best they can to maintain a level of courteous engagement with our communities. They try very much to serve everybody and make sure everybody has a positive experience with us. So the Call to Be Kind campaign is not just about council, but it's about our community, and it's building on the COVID kindness hashtag that was brought about when COVID first started and before I had first started with council. It means a lot in our teams and across our council to be kind. And so I have every faith that our teams are out there trying to do the best they can, bless you, Councillor, for all of the things that we deliver for our community. And so thank you, Mr. Mayor, for helping shine a light on that with the campaign. Thank you to our local community, I know Ros White was part of that launch campaign, but a lot of our local businesses are experiencing the same things. We're seeing a lot of signs up in local businesses saying, please remember, we're here to help and we're here to offer customer service, but we all just need to maybe think about our levels of tolerance, the impacts that COVID has had on us, and maybe, before we start to react or overreact to situations, maybe have that thought of kindness and how we can all work together to just make our community and our environment a great place.
Thank you, Emma. Greg, nothing you wanted to add? No, thank you. All right, and my next question is to do with roads, a topic often discussed here. And remember, councillors, that the original genesis of councils was largely as road authorities to manage the roads in various locations. And clearly, in our case, we're a much bigger region now with many more roads. And as we often say, about 3,600 kilometres of roads, of which about 20% are unsealed. And I picked up the note on page 8 of 163 that somebody else mentioned earlier, that we invested $5.4 million in rehabilitating and resurfacing 7.2 kilometres of local roads. So they were clearly roads that were already sealed. It's $750,000 per kilometre. And we know from sort of past commentary that it's about $1 million a kilometre to seal a road. And I'll get to the point on this in a moment. But it did just dawn on me that, if we were looking at sealing another 200 kilometres of roads, that would be $200 million. And about that would mean it would be in excess of 50% of our total annual rates. Right, so just hold that thought. The 11 kilometres of Bruce Highway that is currently being expanded from Cloundra Road to the Sunshine Motorway, which was absolutely required, comes at a cost of $900 million. 11 kilometres. Now, okay, it's a major arterial, but I think it should prompt people to more regularly ask questions about the value they're getting. That's a lot of money to spend on 11 kilometres of road. When you consider many of our roads not carrying anywhere near the numbers of vehicles, but if you laid our 3,600 kilometres of road side by side in 60 kilometre lengths, it would be a fairly wide road. I'll get back to my point. So my question is, probably to Tom, that cost of $750,000 per kilometre, has that changed as a consequence of COVID in terms of the changes in work practices, the changes in costs of materials and the like, or is it still much for muchness?
Thanks, Mr Mayor, for the question, and through you, my response would be that the cost hasn't changed that much through COVID, that the field teams, because they've been able to operate socially distancing and being able to operate, so their work levels and the outputs have remained very much as is. There has obviously been an impact because of weather, but from a cost perspective, because of COVID, no real impact at all.
Good, thank you. Go to Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, and there is really very little left to say or comment on, but just thinking of your question to Madam CEO about the Cool to Be Kind campaign, I'll keep that very much in my mind and want to make a correction to one of the comments from Councillor Natoli in regards to the Yandina Food Waste Loop. So the Yandina Food Waste Loop is a commendable project created and operated by the Yandina Community Garden. Now, in 2021, and possibly even back into the very end of 2020, I worked extensively with Emily Boyd and her team out at the food waste loop to gather together what have they achieved, what are they doing, and how does council collaborate with them so that they can continue that project beyond the end of their Commonwealth funding grant that was the seed funding for the project. Now, a number of councillors, including Councillor Natoli, Winston, Dixon and the Mayor, contributed significantly to that project, both in time, effort, energy and from discretionary funding, and also we had a contribution from the waste team. But I just want to point out that happened and was all sorted in the last financial year. We've been able to implement that funding to the community and they are successfully continuing. And perhaps the thing that is out of place here is the media launch in relation to that project took place in November. So that's the only part that puts it into this quarter's report. But I just felt it was important to make that correction, that this is something that really started in 2020, was completed in 21, and the Food Waste Loop programme continues to this day. And I suspect we'll probably have some conversations, Mr Mayor and Madam CEO, about what support they may need to continue that programme into the coming year, and also how that could be extended to other community gardens or projects throughout the community while we're looking at organic waste and removing as much waste from landfill as we can and supporting locally based community funded and supported operations to help council and help community work and collaborate together. My final comment to wrap this up, totally support the motion today, but on behalf of the community, not only of Division 10, but I'm sure the whole Sunshine Coast, we appreciate what's going on and what you and your team do of 1,800 staff. And Mr Laverty mentioned the 2,900, I think, hours of volunteer time going into the library. That's how much and how well we work and collaborate with our community. We've still got a lot to do, but as a point in time, as Councillor Christian said, we're going really well at the moment and we've got a lot more to do, and on a journey of continuous improvement, let's keep going. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Orr. There are no further speakers, so would you like to close, Councillor Johnston?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's all been said.
Thank you. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors, and thank you to the CEO and the executive team. Let's move on to item 8.2, which is the flood mapping and information community engagement outcomes. I invite Crispin Smythe to give us a presentation and recognise Nick Cooney as well.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, councillors, this report follows a report that was taken to council on the 19th of August 2021 to do with the flood mapping information. An outcome of that report was to proceed to community engagement on that flood mapping and information. The purpose of today's report is to report back on that community engagement, but also to seek endorsement of the flood and master drainage studies. So the flood mapping and information took to the community new and updated public flood mapping, and it also provided access to flood studies and master drainage study reports. The reason we did this was because it is council's responsibility to maintain current mapping. That mapping is needed to assist us with preparing for growth. It aligns with the state guidance material. It protects the community from flooding and stormwater hazards, and it empowers the community to build resilience. So just as a recap, the mapping that we took to the community included mapping for emergency preparedness purposes. It included mapping for land use planning purposes, and it also included mapping which fell under the category of general information layers. The emergency preparedness layers are provided to the community both through the MyMaps environment but also through disaster hubs, and include riverine mapping of the minor, moderate, major and extreme flood events, as well as storm tide mapping. The land use planning mapping is provided through the MyMaps environment, and included flood risk mapping, defined flood event mapping, a flood storage preservation area map, and it also included a flood hazard area for building regulation purposes map. The general information layers align with the flood study reports. They provide the raw mapping that are in those reports so that the community can cross-reference the reports with the mapping, but also the development industry can be informed in relation to those reports, and that helps through the development assessment process. So as we went out to community engagement, I worked with our graphics design people and our media and communications branch and developed a campaign with the tagline of helping our community to understand flooding. The purpose was to promote the availability of the new and updated mapping with that primary intention of informing the community and industry. We created educational material that included fact sheets, frequently asked questions, downloadable guides, diagrams, how-to videos, and we provided that information through our corporate website, with the corporate website providing a set of web pages that were the explanatory material that supported the mapping products. Also provided briefings to community and industry. The promotional material included media releases, unmanned information stalls at the libraries, paid advertising, social media, direct emails, and a news flash to the building industry. We sought to gain an understanding of whether people understood the information and whether it was easy to use through a 5-minute survey which included 9 questions. So here we see some of the material that we took to the community as part of that campaign. We see a social media post there. We see lunch and learn advertising. I went to Engineers Australia and provided a presentation. There's a website tile there promoting the web page and the mapping, and we can also see examples of the graphic design. So the community engagement, the campaign period went from the 22nd of September to the 6th of November 2021. The flood mapping and information web pages had 12,186 visits, of which 8,659 were unique. And that led to people visiting the mapping portal 3,199 times. We had 111 paid local radio advertisements, and the how-to videos that were embedded within our web pages were viewed 306 times. The 2 social media posts that we used for promotion went to 3,385 users, had 77 reads, and led to 13 people accessing the website. Our customer service people had 951 inquiries relating to flood mapping through the engagement period, and I provided 21 briefing sessions to community members and industry. The survey was accessed 92 times, but only 11 people completed the survey. In terms of the survey results and digging into those, we found that most respondents found that the mapping was somewhat easy or very easy to understand. We also found that most respondents found that it was somewhat easy to find the right map, and most respondents found their experience of using the maps to be okay. Some respondents indicated frustration with the mapping technology, and industry professionals highlighted the importance of the links to the Development Eyesight report. The recommendations of today's report are to receive and note the report titled Flood Mapping and Information Community Engagement Outcomes, to note the outcomes of the community engagement, and to endorse the flood and master drainage studies.
Someone to move? Councillor Suarez, seconded Councillor Cox. Would you like to open, Councillor Suarez, please?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, Crispin, and thank you also to your team for all of the work that was undertaken to get these maps together. This is vital information for our community and for a lot of the stakeholders within our community. And the reason why is probably Mother Nature has shown us why of late. It gives the community a tool to understand and prepare for such events. When you're talking about your home or your infrastructure, your biggest invested assets, you want to make sure that they're as resilient as possible. And this portal will help you understand what risks you might be facing on your property. The purpose of the consultation was to make sure that people knew where they could go to access this information and for us to understand how easy it was to use it. While the number of people visiting the maps was commendable, the number of people filling out the survey was disappointing. While it's only a small sample to tell us whether or not the information was useful to them, we still have plenty of opportunity going forward to make any fixes that will help it for the community. So on that basis, I ask my fellow councillors to endorse the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Cox.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I want to echo Councillor Suarez with expressing a little bit of disappointment in the number of people that actually completed the surveys, considering there was such a high unique visit to the website and the flood mapping and information web pages. As Councillor Suarez said, it's probably pretty timely that this report's coming to Council given everything that's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. I also just wanted to commend Mr. Smythe for the work that he's put into the reports, and obviously we've seen the significant engagement that occurred last year, which led to that report coming to Council late last year. It was pretty topical because earlier this week there was a community group that I sat down with, which is why I missed the Queensland Treasury Corporation presentation in Brisbane. And Mr. Smythe actually gave up some of his time, a couple of hours, to present to that group. And it was quite interesting because this group has always expressed a real concern about flooding in around the Curramundi Lake catchment area, and I think it was very important to have someone of Crispin standing there demonstrating some of the information that we have at hand, which is very comprehensive. And I think the comments that I heard from those particular attendees early in the week after hearing your presentation was that they were really impressed with the amount of detail that was disclosed, the amount of information that's available to the community in relation to this particular topic. And so I just want to put that on public record, that they were very approving of your time and the level of detail that you gave to them on this particular topic. So thank you, and I certainly will be endorsing this particular recommendation, as well as those flood and drainage maps that were part of the core report. So look forward to everyone's support.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. If there are no further speakers, I'll go back to Councillor Suarez to close. No need to close. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Well done, Crispin. Councillors, we might take a short break. If we could be back at, say, 10 to 11, please. Thank you, councillors. We'll resume the meeting. We're up to item 8.3, which is the disposal of land at Whitecross Road, Bly. And I welcome Brad to do a presentation, but before we do, councillors, I'd like to notify you that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 8.3, disposal of land at Whitecross Road, Bly, to be considered at today's ordinary meeting due to the fact that the owner of the subject property, Chris Camp, is a director and member shareholder of Covey and Associates Proprietary Limited, and I received an electoral donation of $2,000 on the 11th of February 2016 from Covey and Associates. This electoral donation was received outside of my relevant term as a councillor, which commenced on the 5th of April 2016, and therefore is not a prescribed conflict of interest within the context of the Local Government Act 2009. Furthermore, the landowner was not a director of Covey and Associates at the time the donation was made. I do not ever recall meeting Chris Camp, nor do I have any ongoing contact with him. On this basis, I've formed the view that I can appropriately manage any conflict should it exist, and I can impartially make a decision in the public interest on the matter, which is the subject of Agenda Item 8.3. So I'll now ask the Deputy Mayor to take the chair so that Council can consider whether or not I may participate in the discussion and decision for Agenda Item 8.3. Thank you, Rick.
Councillors, I'd like to thank the Mayor for his declaration, and councillors, in accordance with Section 150 ES3BI of the Local Government Act 2009, I now call for a councillor to move that Councillor Jamieson either stay or leave the chamber for the duration of the discussion and decision on this matter. And just remind you, councillors, that should the majority decide it is in the public interest for the councillor to stay in the meeting for the duration of this matter, reasons for this decision will need to be recorded in the minutes. So, councillors, do I have someone to either move or to leave? Stay or leave. Councillor Cox,
ask a question first, please, Chair. Normally when we're discussing these particular items, we have to take a vote on whether or not we believe he has a conflict of interest, and then we decide whether or not that person then stays in the room. This seems to be a little bit different to how we normally do it. So maybe Ms. Friend can advise us of what the current status is.
Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. They were the rules, as it were, before October of 2020. So now, with the councillor declaring that they have an interest or may have an interest, it's taken as an interest. You then determine whether or not they can stay and participate in the debate, given the remoteness of that interest or otherwise.
So, any further questions to the Mayor on his stated declaration of interest before you wish to move to stay or leave? Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, and there's been several changes to this over time. Since I did the diploma, there's been several changes, and I just wanted to get my head clear. I think I heard the Mayor say that the time span that it stays within, I think, is 2 terms of council, I think, on the current legislation, and you said it was outside of that at the moment, so that clarifies something for me. So I'd be happy on what was presented to me there to move the Mayor can stay in the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Someone to second. Sorry? My apologies. Councillor Hungerford, could you define out of the list?
Defining, looking at the list,
yep.
I would say number 4 would probably fit best with how the Mayor presented what the interest was. The interest is not considered to be sufficient to undermine the ability of the councillor to form an impartial view and exercise their vote in the public interest, because it's so remote from what we're dealing with here. It's not a subdivision or a change of zoning or things like that. So I believe that one would best suit from what was presented to me there.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Cox, are you happy with that reason and happy to second it? Thank you. Any other questions to the Mayor on his declaration? So, councillors, we have a motion to the Mayor to stay. If there are no further questions, I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour that the Mayor stay? Councillor Landsberg, Councillor Cox, Councillor Natoli, Councillor Johnston, Councillor Hungerford, Councillor Prague, Councillor Suarez, Councillor Law and Councillor Babarowski. That's unanimous. I'll hand the chair back over. We can record that resolution and hand the chair back over to the Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. Okay, we'll press on with item 8.3, and I invite Brad Poole to give his presentation and recognise Kim Martins as well.
Thank you. Good morning all, through you, Mr Mayor. I'm here today to present a proposal for disposal of council-owned land at Whitecross Road, Bly. The proposal is in effect an exchange of land areas with an adjoining owner, the result of a proposed boundary realignment. As you are aware, disposal of land, even if receiving other land in exchange, requires a resolution of council. The owner of 34 Whitecross Road, Bly, approached council to gauge interest in a proposed boundary realignment. The applicant's lot, Lot 1 on SP 155405, is shown in orange in the locality plan on the screen, located just south of the Park Lakes 1 community. And you can see in the second image that the applicant's lot adjoins council-owned land, Environment Reserve at the rear, Lot 968 on SP 272653, and a council-owned lot at the frontage to Whitecross Road, Lot 1 on RP 92714. Council's Lot 968 is owned under a nomination of trust for park and recreation purposes. It was contributed to council in 2016 as part of the Park Lakes development. It contains an established walking trail which at its western end passes through a fairly narrow pinch point between the applicant's lot and other privately held land. The parcel is managed operationally by council by the Environmental Operations team. Council's Lot 1 is open space land held in freehold labelled as Whitecross Road Park. The parcel contains a telecommunications tower and associated compounds sited within a lease area. A short service road leads to the tower from Whitecross Road. This open space parcel is considered a natural amenity reserve and is largely unmaintained by council. It has no open space embellishments for the community, and the proposal before you today does not affect any lease area or any land area affected by the telecommunications infrastructure. The applicant's Lot 1 does already possess a development approval to reconfigure this single lot into 3 lots for residential dwellings. The applicant is seeking to obtain 3 areas of council-owned land at the frontage to Whitecross Road, shown in red in the image on the screen. The land is steep sloping in parts and heavily vegetated. The use of these areas by the applicant would provide for easier access arrangements to the 3 approved residential lots, resulting in less intensive engineering at the driveways and improved bushfire hazard management. The 3 areas proposed to be lost by council are not considered to be of any particular use currently by council or provide any significant environmental or open space value. In exchange, it is proposed for council to gain area at the rear of the applicant's lot that would increase the area of environment reserve, shown in green in the image on the screen. The proposed boundary realignment would result in the boundary of the environment reserve more logically following the landform. It would place ecologically more valuable gullies into the reserve rather than outside of it, as they currently are, alleviates the pinch point of the walking track through privately owned lots, and generally improves the management of the reserve by removing narrow, steep sections to Whitecross Road. Road access to the reserve from Whitecross Road is currently impractical due to the slope and vegetation. Vehicular access to the reserve is more favourable from the north. Ultimately, the proposal would result in a net increase of 0.357 hectares to the environment reserve for council. The proposal has been negotiated by Council's team leader of Environment and Landscape and the manager for natural areas to maximise the benefits of the proposal to Council. In particular, fire hazard management has been held in high consideration. A maintenance track currently exists through the middle of the applicant's lot. The proposed boundary arrangements will site the maintenance track just inside the boundary of the applicant's lot to ensure private landowners can responsibly manage fire risk into the future, but will also enable easy access for council to manage the reserve more effectively at the boundary also. An independent valuation of the land areas confirmed that the proposal will be an equitable exchange in land value. The applicant's current approval for 3 residential lots is shown on the screen on the left. the applicant will be required to submit a new development application, most likely a change application, to effect the boundary realignment and to ensure the 3 residential lots reflect the new boundary arrangements. Any new application will be assessed by Council as per usual development assessment processes, and support from Council for this report is support for consent to dispose of the areas currently owned by Council, and that the relevant exemptions apply from having to dispose of land via tender or auction. It's important to note that support for this report does not infer Council's support or approval for any future applications by the applicant. That process of assessment will still have to run through the planning assessment team. The benefits for the applicant are improved driveway accesses from Whitecross Road and fire hazard management for the future dwellings. The benefits to Council are a net increase in area for environment reserve, ecologically valuable areas being included within the reserve, and shared access to the maintenance track at the proposed boundary for fire management purposes. The images on the right provide some examples of the terrain, vegetation and slope. The recommendation is for Council to note this report titled Disposal of Land, Whitecross Road, blah blah, and to resolve that an exception to dispose of land via tender or auction applies as per the relevant section of Local Government Regulations 2012. Thank you.
Okay, someone to move. I've got Councillor Suarez. Seconder, please. Councillor Cox, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Suarez, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the report, Brad, and thank you to the team who helped facilitate this negotiation. Brad, you've summed it up perfectly. There's not really too much for me to add, but just to explain to my fellow councillors, the walking track that goes within our existing reserve is used by essentially residents who reside in what is a surrounding typical suburban subdivision. So it gives them a reprieve to get into the natural environment. The boundary realignment and swap of land, I suppose you'd call it, will give people who use that trail more separation from their neighbouring properties. It is a net gain of land to Council as well. The parcels will follow a natural gully line, so the environmental and ecological benefits by consolidating this land through that reserve is a great one. And as Brad mentioned, the boundary realignment really does not give the landowner any benefits above and beyond what they've already got in terms of approvals or any future interests. So I encourage my fellow councillors to support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Any other speakers? Don't need to close, Councillor. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Brad and Kim. Let's move to item 8.4, which is the Budget Review 2, and I invite Isaac Pickerskill and Sandy Goodall for a presentation. Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Good morning all. Council, the report in front of you today for consideration looks to formally amend Council's adopted budget for the 2021-22 financial year. Section 170 of Local Government Regulation 2012 allows Council to amend its budget by resolution at any time before the end of the financial year. Major budget reviews are undertaken on a periodic basis to reflect management's best estimates of its financial position at the end of a financial year. Budget reviews are governed by a set of budget principles endorsed during the budget development process, and these are service levels set by Council and aligned to the corporate plan, maintaining our cash levels, maintaining or decreasing our debt levels, and achieving an operating result to fund debt redemptions in our capital works expenditure. The overall adjustments to the budget sees a reduction in our operating result of $4.3 million, from 14.4 down to $10 million. There's an increase in our capital revenues due to additional grants of $1.1 million. And then our core capital program is reduced by $24 million from 315 down to 290 million. There's plenty of detail in the report, but some of the significant adjustments include $1.8 million for financial impacts due to the COVID pandemic, additional fees for development activities of over $1 million. We received environmental offset revenue of $633,000. That mainly relates to Department of Transport main roads, and then the establishment of a 2032 Olympic and Paralympic unit within Council. The capital works expenditure, and this was touched on in the initial quarterly report, we'll see deferral to the core program of $30 million, as well as deferral to our corporate major projects of $9.8 million. Also included is additional land acquisitions through our transport corridors and our social land by the use of developer contributions, and then purchase of land due to the environment levy for $3.5 million. Lastly, councillors, within the report in Appendix B is some changes to the minor capital works program, which is located on the first page of that attachment. And the recommendation is up there on the screen. I won't read it all out.
Thank you, Isaac. Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Natali. You like to open, Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The Local Government Act Regulation, Section 170, and the Local Government Regulation 2012 allows Council to amend its budget through the year as required. The major budget reviews are undertaken on a periodic basis to reflect management's best estimate of our financial position will be at the end of the financial year. So adjustments are normal. The result of this budget review will decrease the 2021-22 operating result by 4.4 million to 10 million. And this can change as we go through the year. This is budget review 2. There's 2 more as we go through the year. Capital revenues have increased by 1.1 million, so that's offsets it to some degree, from 106 million to 107 million. Expenditure under the capital program will decrease by 24.5 million, from 315.2 million to 290 million. That's reflecting the projects we have going. The lack of getting contractors at the right point of time, supply of materials and things mean some of these may carry over into the next budget. What we're doing is reflecting those carryovers. They're still going to be done, but probably in the next financial year. The amendments of this budget review will increase the 2021-22 forecast closing cash balance by 19.4 million to 210 million. What that means is the money goes into restricted cash because it still has to do these projects in the future, and they're temporarily parked there. Now the impacts, COVID-19 impacts for the financial year 21-22 at this stage stands at 1.8 million. The funded requests relate to an additional revenue of 6.6 million and additional offset expenditure drawn down from restricted cash of 3.1. I won't go into the detail on those because there's quite a number of them. The unavoidable costs, additional costs of 1.3 million will be incurred in 21-22, and there was a more detailed breakdown up there before, but some of the quick ones was a revised interest expense, additional costs relating to the quarry, operational costs for the Landsman Museum, and there was some more on the board before. New increased services, the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. There's a budget allocation of 370 required in this budget to plan for what's coming in the future. So where most of this relates to is Council's capital works program. So it's proposed to reduce from 315 to 290 million. That is primarily deferrals of projects required due to contract and market conditions that I espoused before. That's the major one we're doing here. And we're being prudent. Things may improve in the future and we'll be able to bring those forward. But this is us being accurately predicting where we are and where it could be at the end of the financial year. And like I say, we've got 2 more budget reviews yet, but I think we're being cautious and prudent in taking those steps at this time, and I ask you to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers? Okay, you don't need to close, Councillor. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Isaac. Please stay on for 8.5, which is the January 22 financial performance report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you. So Council, the financial results for January 2022 shows an operating result of million, which is favourable to budget by $3 million. The favourable variance consists of revenues above budget of $4.1 million and expenses above budget of $1.1 million. Some of the key highlights, which were touched on in the previous report, are development service applications, fees above budget, as well as additional revenue received from sale of metal materials in our council's recovery centres. And operational expenditure remains within 1% of our adopted budget. The capital works program has progressed 39% complete. That is on the current budget of $315 million. That percentage will change as we defer projects within the current report. Our core program has progressed 36% complete with an actual spend of $70.5 million. Our council's cash at the end of January is $200.5 million, and our debt still stands at $657 million. And as previously stated, we are looking at borrowings of $96.5 million for this current financial year, but looking to reduce our debt for the airport payment that's coming in 30 June. And the recommendation is to receive and note the report for January 2022.
Thank you, Isaac. Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford. Thank you. Councillor Natoli, seconder. Thank you. Like to open, Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick few highlights. Council has a positive operating result of $151.5 million. That is $3 million above the current budget as of the 31st of January 2022. As of the 31st of January 2022, $429.9 million operating revenue has been achieved, which is $4.1 million above the current budget. As of the 31st of January 2022, $122.8 million, or 39% of Council's $315.2 million capital works program has been financially expended. And in Budget Review 2, we've just over $24 million of that is going to be carried into next year, so that's the Budget Review 2. The core capital program has progressed 35.7% of budget with an actual spend of $70.5 million. And the one I'd like to point out, especially for those that look at our finances and try to tell us that we've got a debt problem. Interesting. Because what's showing clearly here is our sound financial management with our major projects. At the moment, we are standing at, well, we will stand in this financial year of $676.7 million in debt. But when the Palisade payment comes in of $305 million due on the 30th of June, that will reduce Council's debt associated with the airport expansion to nil. The effect of that will be Council's forecast debt as of the 30th of June 2022 will come down to $488 million. That's set against $5 billion worth of assets. I don't see that as a debt problem. I see that as sound financial management. That we are continuing with the city centres development as well. So I put to you, councillors, this is a very healthy position to be in. We've got headwinds in front of us. We've got to have to maintain tight physical discipline into the future. But if we do that, we'll come out in a very sound position. I put it to you, this is a very sound place to be at this point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers? No need to close, Councillor? Let's put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Isaac and Sandy. Our next item is 8.6, is the Audit Committee meeting of 24 January 2022. There's no presentation, but that report's been distributed. The minutes of that meeting have been distributed. Does anyone have any questions? Ziggy's here to answer if there are. No? Someone happy to move? Councillor Natoli? Thank you. Is Councillor Hungerford seconded? Would you like to open, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No doubt, councillors, as you know, the Internal Audit Committee is such an important function of council. Risk is one of the major issues that every council has. The Internal Audit Committee is really there to make sure that that risk is mitigated and overseen on behalf of the council. The focus has obviously been in regards to council's asset management and its capacity to be able to deal with asset management and the systems, and there's been a very strong focus and continue to have a very strong focus in that area. It had been identified as a high risk for council, and we're managing that risk through that process. The Maroochydore City Centre project is another one that the Internal Audit Committee has shown great interest in making sure that, again, the risk of that project is minimised as we go through. I'm really impressed with the two external representatives that we have. I think their freshness and their contribution has just been outstanding. I think, the council's much better off with them. There has been a review, and one of the reviews has been to see how many external representatives are on other councils' audit committees. And we found that we were pretty much at the bottom end of only having two. Some have 4, some have 3. There is a recommendation that we should be considering adding another one. If we get another external representative as good as the 2 that we have, I think that will be an incredible asset for council to have. So I recommend that council would consider and support that.
Thank you, Councillor Natali. Councillor Hungerford.
I would also like to support those comments. What I do note is the independent chair of the committee acknowledged the professional and comprehensive nature of the documents prepared for the meeting and thanked the Chief Executive Officer and council staff for their efforts in this regard. And there's quite a large document each time, and there's quite a bit of work in there. In recognition that the Sunshine Coast is forecast to exceed 500,000 residents by 2041. And that population growth will increase the demand on council services, including internal functions. Within the organisation, such as Audit, a review of the Audit Committee member composition across South East Queensland councils has recently been conducted. And if you look at the size of our council compared to other councils, and we're coming up to that size with that increase in population, just for interest, the Gold Coast has 2 councillors and 4 independents, for a total of 6. Logan has 2 councillors and 4 independents for a total of 6. Morton, which is very similar to us, has 2 councillors and 3 independents for a total of 5. Ipswich, likewise, 2 councillors and 3 independents for a total of 5. We have 2 councillors and 2 independents for a total of 4. Noosa, 2, 2 and 4. And Redlands, 2, 2 and 4, with most of them with the independent as a chair. So with that growth, I think it's very prudent for us to look at the workload into the future, and that extra oversight with us to work with us is very important, because remember, this council has achieved 13 and modified audits in a row. That's like honours. 13 years in a row. And the work of the Audit Committee goes largely towards that, ensuring we keep on top of it, because I want to see us keep getting unmodified audits continually. We've got to 13, there's no reason why we can't get to 20, because we're well on our way to there. So I believe this is very prudent with the growth and the size of our organisation compared to other councils. It's well within line, and I think it's a very prudent and sensible move that we're making here to expand the Audit Committee with the growth and the workload that's coming on. So I put it to you to support this. It's a very sound move.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Law.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I just have a couple of questions, if I might. And really good to hear the councillors and the work they're doing to help us. While we're thinking of the membership of the committee, it includes 2 councillors. I have a question for Councillor Natoli, or maybe the CEO. You made a statement at the beginning of this meeting around conflict of interest, and in the report that we're looking at today, while you were there, you had to declare an interest, and you're absolutely absent for all the votes that have resulted in this report. So, as our councillor on this very important task, does your statement today mean you're able to actually fulfil the role of the portfolio councillor for the Audit Committee?
Councillor Law, my discussions with the CEO obviously has been about understanding my role and how I can participate, and I'm confident that I can continue to be a very active and strong member of the Internal Audit Committee. I don't believe that in the future there will be any issue pertaining to any other matter that will come up.
Perhaps, Madam CEO, for something to add, yes.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and I think it's a good question. Councillor Natoli has been very responsible in managing this conflict throughout the Audit Committee proceedings, and as you've seen today with the discussion that Councillor Natoli brought to Council this morning, we consider that he can continue in his role in the Audit Committee without any further conflict.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Law. If there are no further speakers, I'll go back to Councillor Natoli to close. Not necessary, thank you. Councillors will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. There are no notices of motion. Again, I'm very grateful. Petitions. Petitions we have from Councillor Johnston. The Maleny community request to amend development application. Thank you, Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This petition is signed by 109 residents. I think almost all of them are from the Maleny area. And it relates to a subdivision application where they petitioned for an amendment to application RAL 21/0101. We, the undersigned community members of Maleny, petitioned the Sunshine Coast Council to amend the above application to ensure responsible and environmentally friendly residential development. The Maleny Rangeview community has, since 2010, have maintained, weeded and planted new trees between Meg Hankerson Park, the new Eco Park on the corner of Trail Road and Bridge Creek Road, and the public verge from Trail Road to Palm Street, a distance of some 200 metres. This bush trail is a valuable and diverse ecosystem for wallabies, echidnas, possums, bandicoots, carpet pythons, owls, multitudes of birds and their nests. Sunshine Coast Council must pledge their environment credentials to stop the destruction of this habitat for residential houses and driveways. And the fantastic news is that it wasn't necessary to call this application up to Council. There were some problems in relation to calling it up because the applicant could have actually had a deemed approval if it had been called up. However, I'd like to thank Warren and also all the planning staff and the engineering staff who took on board not only my concerns but the community's concerns in relation to this. And after the petition first came to me and I had discussions, I think it was Monday last week, on the Tuesday, we met up on the site. I know the Mayor drove up there to see what it was like on the weekend. So I'd just like to say that following that discussion on site and the viewing of the situations, I made a suggestion as to how the situation could be rectified, which was by, instead of having properties accessing directly onto Bridge Creek Road, an internal road could be constructed. The planning and engineering staff went and
Can I just ask you to hold for 1 second? I just want to get someone to second. Oh, yeah, Councillor Dixon, carry on. You're right.
I'm sorry about that. They went and consulted with the applicant, the developer, and explained what the situation was, and the developer came back with an amended plan which included an internal road and no access onto Bridge Creek Road, which meant that the tree planting and the environmental corridor along Bridge Creek Road would be retained. It's a fantastic result, and I'd just like to not only thank the staff of Council, but also the developer and all of the residents who brought this petition, led by Mr Clive Waring, to Council, because it's a great outcome for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. We'll just take a vote in receipt of that petition. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Councillors, that brings us to the end of our agenda for today. just as the rain starts coming down again. So I thank you all very much. And I would just like to recognise that a resident or a citizen drowned during the week, unfortunately caught in the floodwaters. And whilst I've no knowledge of the identity of that lady, I think I'd just like to express Council's sincerest condolences to her family and friends at what will be a very difficult time for them. And we do have forecasts for continuing very wet weather over the next couple of days. So I'd urge you to use whatever influence you can in helping to dissuade people from unnecessarily being on the roads. But also think of the work that our staff will be doing, considerable work with lots of potholes and other issues around roads. I understand most of our infrastructure, bridges and what have you are in good order. But it is certainly a test for our infrastructure when these things happen, but more so of a test obviously for the family and friends of the deceased lady. So I'll close the meeting at 11:30.